The moment I stepped into the classroom, my heart raced with a mix of nerves and excitement. It was my first day as a teacher in Elderwood, and the air was thick with the promise of new beginnings. I could feel the eyes of the students on me, some curious, others indifferent. But one pair of eyes, in particular, held my attention. Jacob sat in the back, his dark hair slightly tousled, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. There was something about him. His intelligence sparkled like sunlight on water, and his charisma pulled me in like a moth to a flame. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Ms. Harper, and I'm thrilled to be your new literature teacher," I said, trying to project confidence. As I spoke, I noticed Jacob nodding, his gaze unwavering. It was a simple gesture, yet it ignited something within me, a spark of excitement that felt both exhilarating and forbidden. As we dove into discussions about classic literature, I found myself drawn to Jacob's insights. "Why do you think characters make such drastic choices?" I asked, hoping to ignite a passionate debate. He leaned forward, his eyes shining. "Because they're often driven by desire, Ms. Harper. Desire can lead to great things, but it can also lead to destruction." His words lingered in the air, and I swallowed hard. A part of me wanted to challenge him, to remind him of the consequences of those choices, but another part was captivated. I felt a connection growing between us, one that was both thrilling and terrifying. After class, the other students filtered out, leaving Jacob and me alone. He lingered by my desk, his fingers brushing against the edge of my desk. "Do you think we can ever truly understand a character's motivations?" he asked, his voice low and inviting. I hesitated, my heart racing. "It's difficult. Sometimes we only see what we want to see." My words hung in the air, and I felt a tension building between us, like a taut string ready to snap. "What about in real life?" Jacob pressed, stepping closer. "Can we really know someone's true desires?" His question echoed in my mind, and I found myself grappling with the unsettling realization that this connection threatened to unravel the very fabric of my life and marriage. I had always prided myself on being committed to Ethan, my husband, yet here I was, entangled in something I had never expected. "Jacob," I began, my voice trembling, "we need to be careful." He looked at me, his expression shifting from curiosity to something more intense. "Why? Isn't it natural to feel a connection with someone who understands you?" I felt the heat rise to my cheeks. "Yes, but there are boundaries," I managed to say, even as part of me was drawn to the very idea of crossing them. "Boundaries can be redefined," he said softly, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Sometimes, they're just walls we build to protect ourselves." His words sent shivers down my spine. I was on shaky ground, and every word exchanged felt like a step closer to a precipice. I forced a smile, trying to dispel the tension. "We should focus on the literature." Yet, as the days passed, our discussions grew more charged, filled with unspoken desires that hung in the air like smoke. Each encounter left me both exhilarated and scared. I found myself daydreaming about Jacob, replaying our conversations in my mind, feeling guilty, but unable to resist the pull. One afternoon, as I packed my bag to leave, Jacob lingered again. "Can I ask you something personal?" he said, his tone serious. "Of course," I replied, though my heart raced. "Do you ever wish for something more? Something beyond what you have?" His question struck me like a lightning bolt. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. I was at a crossroads, the thrill of something new battling the weight of my existing life. What would I say? What should I say? The silence between us felt heavy with possibilities, and I knew I was standing on the edge of a decision that could change everything. And in that moment, I realized that the new beginning I had hoped for was about to lead me down a path I never intended to explore. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the empty classroom. I was busy organizing my papers, hoping to shake off the strange tension that had settled in my chest since that first day with Jacob. Just as I was about to leave, I noticed him lingering by the door. His dark hair fell into his eyes, and he looked both nervous and curious. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked, his voice soft but steady. "Of course," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual, but my heart raced in my chest. We had shared many conversations about literature, but this felt different. I closed the door behind me, shutting out the world outside. "I really enjoyed our discussion about The Great Gatsby," he said, leaning against the desk. "You made some points I hadn't thought about before." "Thanks, Jacob. I love talking about books, especially when students are as engaged as you are," I said, trying to maintain a professional distance. But with every word, the air between us grew thicker. He took a step closer, his gaze intense. "I feel like there's more to discuss. It's like we connect on a different level." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" I asked, even though I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly what he meant. "I don't know. It's just, you get me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I can't help but feel drawn to you." I felt the electricity in the air, a current that pulled us together despite the walls I tried to build. "Jacob, we shouldn't. This isn't appropriate," I said, my voice shaking slightly. But he didn't back away. Instead, he reached out and brushed his fingers against mine. The touch sent a shock through my body, igniting feelings I had buried for so long. I felt alive, yet terrified. "I can't help it," he said, his eyes searching mine. "There's something between us." I pulled my hand back, my breath quickening. "We can't do this. I'm your teacher. I'm married," I reminded him, though my words felt weak against the tidal wave of emotions crashing over me. "I know," he said, a hint of frustration in his voice. "But I can't pretend like I don't feel this connection." I felt my heart racing. "Please, let's just talk about school. You need to focus on your studies," I said, hoping to steer the conversation back to safer ground. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You don't understand. It's not just about school for me. You make me feel things I never thought I could feel." I turned away, trying to gather my thoughts. The guilt washed over me, but the thrill of his words ignited a fire I couldn't ignore. "Jacob, this is wrong. You're a student, and I'm your teacher. We can't cross that line." "Why not?" he asked, stepping closer again. "What if it feels right?" I looked into his eyes, searching for the answer to a question I knew I shouldn't be asking. "It's not just about what feels right. There are consequences." "Maybe the consequences are worth it," he said softly, his voice almost pleading. "What if we're meant to be more than this?" His words hung in the air, tempting and dangerous. I felt the walls I had built starting to crack. "I need to go," I said, my voice trembling as I reached for the door. "Wait," Jacob said, his hand catching mine. "Just think about it. We could explore this, just one time." The very idea made my heart race. "No, Jacob, I can't. I won't," I said, pulling my hand away. "I need to think about my life, my marriage." As I stepped out of the classroom, the weight of my decision felt heavier than ever. I was crossing boundaries I had sworn to uphold. The excitement I felt mingled with a deep sense of guilt, and I knew that this was just the beginning of a dangerous game. As the days passed, the weight of desire I carried felt heavier than ever. Each secret encounter with Jacob was a thrill, but it was also a wave of guilt crashing over me. I found myself in a constant battle, torn between the excitement of being with him and the shame that followed me like a shadow. I remember one particular morning, waking up after spending the night with Jacob. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating the room, but all I felt was a crushing reality settling in. I turned to look at my husband, Ethan, who lay next to me, blissfully unaware of the storm raging inside me. I wanted to reach out and feel the warmth of his love, but I felt like a stranger in my own home. "Good morning?" Ethan murmured, his voice soft and sleepy. "Good morning?" I replied, forcing a smile. My heart raced as I thought about the night before. The way Jacob's laughter filled my ears. I felt a pang of guilt as I remembered the way Jacob looked at me, his eyes filled with longing. Ethan stretched and turned to face me. "Any plans for today?" "I was thinking about grading some papers and maybe going for a run later," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sounds good. Just remember to take it easy," he said, concern flickering in his eyes. I could see in his expression that he noticed something was off, but I pushed the thought aside. I couldn't let him see the turmoil within me. As I went about my day, the memories of Jacob kept flooding my mind. Each laugh, each brush of our hands, replayed like a film I couldn't turn off. I sat at my desk, surrounded by papers, but all I could think about was the duality of my existence. With Jacob, I felt alive, but with Ethan, I felt trapped in a life that no longer fulfilled me. That afternoon, I found myself standing at the edge of the school courtyard, my heart racing as I waited for Jacob to arrive. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel the electricity crackling between us even before he showed up. "Hey," he said, his voice low and inviting as he approached. "Hey," I replied, my stomach flipping. "I thought we could talk about the book we're reading." "Sure, but I'd rather talk about us," he said, a teasing smile on his lips. "Jacob, we can't keep doing this," I said, my voice trembling. "It's wrong." He stepped closer, the intensity in his eyes making it hard for me to breathe. "Is it really wrong? Or is it just a matter of how we feel?" His words struck a chord deep within me. I felt the thrill of his presence, the warmth that spread through my body. But alongside it was the gnawing guilt that I couldn't shake. "I love Ethan," I whispered. But even as I said it, I could feel the truth slipping away. "Do you? Or do you love the idea of him?" Jacob pressed, stepping even closer. "What about what we have? It's real, isn't it?" I felt trapped, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. "I don't know," I exclaimed, my voice rising in frustration. "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I can't ignore how I feel when I'm with you." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken words and desires. I could see the pain in Jacob's eyes, and it mirrored my own. "What are we doing then?" he asked quietly, his voice breaking the tension. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I don't want to lose you, but I don't want to lose my life either." As I stood there, the weight of my choices felt overwhelming. I was torn between two worlds, each pulling me in a different direction. The excitement and passion I felt with Jacob were intoxicating, but they came at a cost I wasn't sure I was willing to pay. "I need time to think," I finally said, stepping back, the distance between us feeling like a chasm. "Okay," Jacob replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "But please don't shut me out. I can't lose you." I nodded, my heart aching. As I walked away, I felt a part of me breaking, but I also felt the urgency of my situation. The internal conflict was reaching a fever pitch, and I knew I had to confront the repercussions of my choices before it was too late. I could feel the weight of my secrets pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. Ethan had started to notice my changes, the way I laughed a little too loudly at jokes that weren't funny, or how I would stare off into space, lost in thoughts I could not share. I could see the concern in his eyes, the way he would watch me as if he were trying to solve a puzzle that had missing pieces. One evening, as we sat across from each other at the dinner table, the silence felt thick and heavy. Ethan broke it first. "You seem distant lately. Is everything okay?" His voice was soft, but I could hear the edge of worry in it. "Of course I'm fine," I replied too quickly, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a genuine expression. I wanted to reach out and tell him everything, but the truth was a beast I could not tame. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from Jacob. "Are you okay? I miss you." My heart raced as I read those words. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once. I stared at the screen for a long time before I typed back, "I'm fine, just busy with school." But as the days passed, my lies began to tangle around me like a web. I found myself sneaking texts in the middle of the night, my heart racing each time Ethan shifted in his sleep beside me. I wondered how long I could keep this up, how long I could pretend that my heart was not already drifting towards someone else. Then came the day when everything unraveled. I was in my classroom, grading papers, when I heard the door swing open. I looked up to see Ethan standing there, his face a mix of confusion and anger. My stomach dropped. "Jacob," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "What's going on between you two?" I felt my breath hitch in my throat. "Ethan, Don't lie to me." He cut me off, his voice rising. "I saw you with him, at the coffee shop. You were laughing like you forgot I existed." I could only stare at him, my mind racing to find the right words, but nothing came. "Were you going to tell me?" he asked, his eyes searching mine for a truth I was too scared to give. "I didn't mean for it to happen," I finally whispered, tears threatening to spill over. It just did." Ethan's face hardened, and I could see the pain in his eyes. "This isn't just a phase, is it? You've crossed a line." In that moment, Jacob walked into the room, unaware of the storm brewing. The sight of him standing there, casual and carefree, made my heart ache. Ethan's expression shifted from confusion to fury. "Jacob," Ethan said slowly, his voice dripping with disdain, "you need to leave. Now." "Ethan, wait." I tried to intervene, but my words were drowned out by the tension in the air. "No," Ethan shouted, his voice echoing in the small classroom. "I want to hear it from you. What is this?" I felt trapped between two worlds, one of comfort and familiarity, and the other filled with reckless passion. "Ethan, please, let's talk about this. Just give me a chance to explain," I pleaded, my heart racing. Jacob stepped forward, his brows furrowed in concern. "I didn't mean to come between you two," he said, his voice steady, but filled with regret. "I care about her, but I never wanted it to go this far." Ethan's eyes darkened as he turned his fury towards Jacob. "You think you can just waltz in here and take what's mine? You've ruined everything." The air crackled with tension, and I could feel my heart shattering into a million pieces. "Ethan, please," I begged, my voice trembling. "I never meant for this to happen. I love you." "Love?" he spat. "Is that what you call this? Because it sure doesn't look like love to me." The words stung like a slap to the face, and I felt the depth of my betrayal wash over me. I had to make a choice. I could cling to the familiar love that had been my anchor, or I could dive headfirst into the chaos that Jacob represented. As I stood there, torn and broken, I realized that the confrontation had become a mirror, reflecting my deepest fears. I had betrayed Ethan, and now I had to face the reality of my actions. The emotional fallout was just beginning, and I was left standing in the wreckage of my decisions, shattered and uncertain of what lay ahead. In the wake of the confrontation, my world felt like it was crumbling around me. I stood in the living room, staring blankly at the scattered pieces of my life. Ethan had left the house, needing space to process what had just happened. The silence was deafening, a heavy reminder of my choices. Guilt pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't shake off. I sank into the couch, my heart pounding in my chest. I thought about the look on Ethan's face when he discovered my betrayal. His eyes had held a mix of shock and pain, as if I had stabbed him in the heart. "How could you?" he had asked, his voice breaking. I didn't have an answer then, and I still didn't have one now. The empty room echoed with memories of laughter and love that now felt tainted. I closed my eyes, wanting to escape the reality I had created. I couldn't help but think about Jacob, too. Our passionate moments together had turned into a haunting memory, leaving me with a sense of loss that I never anticipated. I felt like a ghost wandering through the remnants of my own life. Days passed, and each one felt like a lifetime. I tried to reach Ethan, but he remained distant. I could sense his hurt, and it cut me deeper than any knife. "Can we talk?" I texted him one afternoon, but the response was slow. When it finally came, it was as cold as ice. "I need time." Time. The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions. I spent my days in solitude, reflecting on what love truly meant. Was it loyalty? Trust? Or was it something more complicated? I thought about the moments I had shared with Jacob, the thrill of our connection. Yet, it now felt like a betrayal of everything I had with Ethan. One evening, I sat on the back porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The colors were vibrant, yet I felt nothing. "What have I done?" I murmured to myself, tears streaming down my cheeks. The weight of my choices felt unbearable. I longed for redemption, but I didn't know if it was even possible. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jacob, and my heart raced. "I miss you." A simple message, yet it sent shivers down my spine. I stared at it, torn between the desire to reply and the knowledge that doing so would only deepen my pain. I took a deep breath and typed back, "We can't do this anymore." The moment I hit send, a wave of relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by sorrow. Jacob had been my escape, but now he felt like a reminder of my failures. I hoped he would understand. In my heart, I knew I needed to face my reality, no matter how painful it was. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself wandering through life like a lost soul. I attended work, but teaching felt hollow. I could see the students, their bright faces, but I felt disconnected. One day, Jacob approached me after class. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I forced a smile, shaking my head. "Not really. I need to focus on my life right now." The words hung between us, thick with tension. He nodded slowly, his eyes searching mine. "I understand. I just want you to be happy." "Thank you," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. As he walked away, I felt an ache in my chest. I had lost not only Ethan, but also a part of myself in the process. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I thought about reaching out to Ethan again. I picked up my phone, hesitated, then called him. The line rang, and my heart raced. Finally, I heard his voice. "Hello? Ethan, it's me," I said, my voice trembling. "Can we talk?" There was a long pause, and then he sighed deeply. "I don't know, but I'll think about it." "Please," I pleaded, feeling the weight of desperation. "I need to explain." "Okay," he said softly, "but I need you to be honest." "I will," I promised, hoping that somehow I could find a way back to the man I loved. As I hung up, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Maybe, just maybe, there was a path towards redemption. But for now, all I could do was brace myself for the storm that lay ahead. As I stood in front of the mirror that morning, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. The shadows under my eyes told tales of restless nights, and the weight of my choices pressed heavily on my chest. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I had to face the day, face Ethan. "Today," I whispered to my reflection, "we will talk." I needed to reconnect with him after the chaos of the past weeks. It felt impossible, but it was a step I had to take. When I arrived in the kitchen, Ethan was already there, sitting at the table. The morning light streamed through the window, illuminating the lines of worry etched on his face. I could see how my betrayal had changed him. He looked up as I walked in, and the silence between us was thick, a palpable tension that made my heart race. "Good morning," I said softly, trying to break the ice. "Morning," he replied, his voice low. He didn't meet my gaze, focusing instead on the coffee mug in his hands. I took a seat across from him, feeling the weight of the moment. "Ethan, we need to talk." My voice trembled slightly, but I pushed through the fear. "About everything." He sighed deeply, setting down the mug. "What is there to say? You made your choice." The hurt in his eyes pierced through me, and I could feel the guilt rising in my throat. "I know I hurt you. I can't change what happened, but I want to try to explain," I said, my heart racing as I searched for the right words. "I want to understand why I did it." "Do you even know?" he asked, his voice edged with pain. "You were supposed to be my partner." "I thought I was happy," I replied, feeling tears sting my eyes. "But I lost myself along the way. I got caught up in something that felt exciting, and I didn't stop to think about the consequences." Ethan shook his head slowly, a mix of sadness and anger on his face. "You didn't just lose yourself. You lost us." "I know," I whispered, my voice barely a breath. "I want to work on this. I want to find a way back to each other. I have started going to therapy to talk about my feelings and why I made such terrible choices." His expression softened slightly at the mention of therapy. "You're serious about this?" "Yes, I am," I said, feeling a flicker of hope. "I want to understand what led me to betray you. I want to heal and be the wife you deserve." Ethan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "It's going to take time, a lot of it. I don't know if I can just forgive you." "I understand," I said, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I hope we can talk. I want to hear how you feel." He looked away, staring out the window for a moment. "Talking doesn't change what happened, you know." "I know," I replied, my voice steady. "But it's a start. I want to rebuild our trust, brick by brick. I want to show you that I can be better, that I can be honest." Ethan turned back to me, his eyes searching mine. "What if I can't trust you again?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Then I will prove to you that I am worthy of that trust. I will do whatever it takes." He remained silent, and I could feel the tension in the air. But at that moment, I realized that talking was the first step. I wanted to believe that we could find a way through this darkness. "I love you, Ethan," I said, my voice filled with sincerity. "I want to make this right. Please, let's try." He finally nodded, albeit hesitantly. "Okay, let's talk, but know that it won't be easy." "I'm ready for that," I said, a small smile forming on my lips. "I want to face it all, together." As we began to speak, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. It was just the beginning, but I was willing to fight for our love, to mend what had been broken. In that moment, I realized that the path to redemption was not just about healing my heart, but also about healing ours. Share this story if you believe that love can conquer even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about a time when an unexpected conversation changed your life, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories like this one. Let's embark on this journey of healing together.